Okay, good morning to all of you. Today we are starting the next chapter. That is chapter number 14, Ecology. Okay, it is one more important chapter of this unit. Now here, what we are going to discuss here, what is ecology we already know, right? It is a branch of science which deals with the surroundings and the relationship with the surroundings with the organisms. Now here, in this chapter we have to discuss about the ecosystem. What is actually the ecosystem? Then the structure of ecosystem, different examples of ecosystems, then functional aspects, structural and functional aspects of the ecosystem and their functions, energy flow in an ecosystem, ecological pyramids. So there are different topics we have to discuss in this chapter. Now here, let us go first. What is ecosystem? Right? What is ecosystem? Here, the term ecosystem is proposed by scientist A.G. Tansley in 1935. Right? Okay. If you go through this, the word ecosystem. The word ecosystem was coined by scientist Arthur G. Tansley in 1935. Now, what is ecosystem? It is the interaction of living things among themselves and also with the surrounding environment. So, it is considered as functional unit of the nature, right? So, ecosystem is normally considered as functional unit of an ecosystem. It can be easily simply defined as the interaction between living things or among themselves and with their surroundings, right? Now here three scientist names are given. Father of ecology, Alexander von Humboldt is considered as father of ecology. With respect to India, Professor Ramdev Mishra, Professor Ramdev Mishra considered as father of Indian ecology, and Odom was the scientist who considered as father of modern ecology. So these are the three important scientists related to the ecology. Father of ecology, Alexander von Humboldt. Father of Indian ecology, Ramdev Mishra. And O.P. Odom was father of modern ecology. Right? So what is the definition? Ecosystem is the interaction of living things among themselves and as well as with their surroundings. Now here, the size. If we go through the size of an ecosystem, the ecosystem may be as large as the ocean or a forest, or it may be as small as an aquarium. So all the ecosystems are interconnected with each other. Now if we classify the types of ecosystems, there are two types of ecosystems are terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial ecosystems, there are examples are there: forest, grassland, desert, etc. Forest, grassland, deserts are the terrestrial ecosystems on the land. They are present on the land. An aquatic ecosystem is the pond, lake, river, wetland, estuary, oceans. All these are aquatic ecosystems. Now here, all of you know what is pond, lake, river, wetland, and ocean, right? What is estuary? The word is given estuary. Estuary is a place or the region where fresh water introduced into the oceans. It is an interconnection between rivers and oceans. It is also termed as brackish water. Estuaries are also termed as brackish waters where the rivers entered into the oceans. It is termed as estuary. Right? So these are the different two types of ecosystems: terrestrial along with aquatic ecosystem. Okay. Now here, if you go through the structure of ecosystem, right? If you go through the structure of ecosystem, now how many types of ecosystems are there? right? Now there are two types of ecosystems are there: aquatic ecosystem and terrestrial. Now one more classification is there, that is now. So one classification is terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic ecosystem. Okay. Okay. So there are, if we go through that, the ecosystems are two types: terrestrial ecosystems and aquatic ecosystem. One more classification is there, that is natural ecosystem and artificial ecosystem. Now what we have, the different examples of artificial and terrestrial, all those are natural ecosystems. The rivers, ponds, oceans, forest, grassland, all these are natural ecosystem. But aquarium is an artificial ecosystem, right? So natural and artificial, it is a one more classification, and terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. Now if you go through the structure of ecosystem, right? If you go through the structure of ecosystem, here there is a flow chart is given, that is the structure of ecosystem. Now ecosystem can be classified into two parts: abiotic factors and biotic factors, right? Abiotic means non-living things and abiotic means living things. Now these abiotic factors are again classified into two categories: physical factors and chemical factors. And the biotic factors are classified into two categories: producers, consumers, and decomposers. Then again, consumers classified into three categories: primary, secondary, and tertiary consumer. As they are all depends on the producers, they consider as consumers. But according to their food habits, these these consumers are again termed as herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores, or we can say predators, right? So this is a classification: abiotic factors and biotic factors. Okay, abiotic factors and biotic factors. Now here, so what is abiotic factors and what is biotic factors and what is abiotic factors? If we go through that, this is a flow chart. Now this is the biotic factors and abiotic components. Now what are the abiotic components? Non-living things. These are also called as non-living things. Both includes physical and chemical factors. Now chemical factors includes two types: inorganic and organic. Physical components includes light, temperature, humidity, wind, etc. Right? Chemical components includes two types: inorganic and organic. Okay. Right. So organic and inorganic components, these together called as chemical. Now these are two types. If inorganic, take nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, phosphorus, sulfur, etc. are inorganic components, which are very helpful for biotic components. And then organic components includes the most important biomolecules, that is carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, vitamins, enzymes. All these are considered as organic components, which are mainly made up with carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. right? We already discussed what are the biomolecules in your last year curriculum. So these are all abiotic components, right? Both physical and chemical. Light, temperature, humidity, wind, etc. considered as physical, and different chemicals, that is both organic and inorganic components. Now here, if you go through the next slide, what are the biotic components now? Now here are the biotic components. We already discussed about this. These are the living things, mainly classified into three types: producers, consumers, and decomposers. Now, what are the producers? These are plants, autotrophic organisms. They make their own food by performing photosynthesis in presence of sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide. So, this is the most important metabolic process takes place in the plants, which is necessary for the biosphere, because whole biosphere is depends on these products produced by plants with the help of photosynthesis. So they can manufacture. We already know what is photosynthesis, right? We have discussed what is photosynthesis in detail in your 11th standard, which occurs in light phase and dark phase, right? So dark phase occurs in C3, C4, CAM cycle, everything we have already discussed. So producers means plants. These are the green plants, autotrophic organisms. So utilize their radiant energy, solar energy, and they manufacture the food. So by photosynthesis is the most important process in the biosphere which makes the food for everyone. So this is the first biotic component of ecosystem. The second one is a consumer. Consumer means what? They directly depends on the producers. So these are called heterotrophic organisms, right? They directly or indirectly depends on the consumers. As per their food habits, they are classified into three categories: primary consumer, secondary consumer, and tertiary consumer. Right. Now, what is primary, secondary, and tertiary consumer? The organism who directly depends on the plants are the autotrophs, are the producers. They are called herbivores. They are called herbivores. They directly depend on the green plants for their food. So they are called primary consumers, the first level of consumers. Second, the organisms who depends directly on primary consumers and indirectly on producers, they are called secondary consumers, or we can say primary carnivores. And the third is the top carnivores, or we can say tertiary consumers, or we can say omnivores. So there are different names out there, right? So these tertiary consumers are secondary carnivores or top carnivores like lion, tiger. So the last category of the consumer is considered either tertiary consumers, or we can say secondary carnivore, or we can say top carnivore, or we can say omnivore, as they are directly depends on secondary consumer and indirectly depends on producers. So now here in an ecosystem, the energy produced in the producer and which is transferred to the next level, that is primary, secondary, and tertiary consumer. This flow of energy represents the food chain actually. Okay, so we discuss later what are the food chains and what are the types of food chains and food web also. So this is about the biotic components. Okay, now here it is an example of pond ecosystem, right? Here it is an example of pond ecosystem is there. Now before going to that pond ecosystem, if you go the figure of this pond ecosystem, if you go through the pond ecosystem, Now it is a image of pond ecosystem. It's a complete example of an ecosystem. It is an example of aquatic ecosystem. Now here is a figure is given, a pond which consists of different types of biotic and abiotic components, right? Solar radiation, it is an abiotic component. Water, it's an abiotic component, and different organisms are there, right? Producers are there, herbivores are there, secondary carnivores, primary carnivores, zooplanktons, rooted vegetated plants, saprophytes. All these are given in this. Now, it is an ecosystem where all the organisms are interacted with each other and transfer the energy from one level to the next level. Okay, so this is a diagram of pond ecosystem. Now, if we go through the structure of this pond ecosystem, if you go through the structure of pond ecosystem, here a pond is a shallow water body in which all the above mentioned basic structural and functional components are present. Basic structure and functional means what? Abiotic and biotic. Shallow water means there is no, it's a lagging water. It is just a stagnant water like. Now here the abiotic components includes all dissolved inorganic and organic substances and the rich soil deposited at the bottom of the pond. Right? The water consists different dissolved organic and inorganic contents, and also the soil is rich with different types of minerals which are deposited into that. So these are all includes abiotic. Autotrophic components are phytoplanktons. Now the phytoplanktons are the organisms which are microscopic, small, chlorophyllous plant structures. Right? These are very smaller in the size, hence considered as phytoplanktons as they have chlorophyll and they perform photosynthesis. Along with the phytoplanktons, some algae and floating, submerged and marginal plants are also there. Now three kinds of plants are there. Floating plants are there, submerged plants are there, and marginal plants are there. Now floating plants means they float on the water surface. They also perform photosynthesis. Submerged means the half of the plant, that is the roots are embedded in the soil, in the water, and the major stem part is come out from the water surface. So half of the plant body is submerged in the water and half of the plant body is out of the water, above the water surface. And marginal plants, these are present on the boundaries of pond. So these are three kinds of ponds present. So these are all autotrophic, means they perform photosynthesis and they prepare the food for whole pond ecosystem. Now the consumers, there are again many types. Zooplanktons, which are free swimming and bottom dwellers. Bottom dwellers means they are present at the bottom of the pond. Now zooplanktons are the herbivores. Now these are the first are the primary consumers which directly feeds on phytoplanktons. If we take an example of zooplanktons, different larval forms we have studied, right? Different larval forms we have studied last year. All these larval forms are of animals considered as zooplanktons as they feed on different phytoplanktons, small plants. So these are primary consumers. These larval forms are the zooplanktons consumed by small fishes. So they consider as secondary consumer, right? And these fishes are small fishes consumed by larger size fishes. So they consider as tertiary consumers. So this is a chain system is developed within the consumers. So these are all consumers. And the last one is decomposers. The decomposers includes fungi, bacteria and flagellates found abundantly in the bottom. Now what is the role of these decomposers? Decomposers play an important role to recycling the minerals of the ecosystem. Decomposers play an important role in the recycling of minerals of the ecosystem. Okay. whatever the food is prepared in the producers, it is transferred to the primary, secondary and tertiary consumers. And then after the death of these plants and animals, the body of these plants and animals are decomposed by these decomposers like bacteria and different flagellates, so that all the organic and inorganic content again deposited into the soil. It is called recycling of minerals by decomposition. We'll discuss what is decomposition and the different steps involved in the decomposition later. Okay. So this is about the structure of pond ecosystem, right? How this pond ecosystem will function. We already know the different components of pond ecosystem. Now, how this function? Now here, autotrophs, that is small phytoplanktons, algae and different plants, convert the inorganic material into organic by the process of photosynthesis with the help of solar energy. It's called photosynthesis. Then heterotrophs consume the autotrophs, and then decomposers decompose the dead organic material and minerals and release back them into the soil. So it is called recycling of minerals into the soil by the action of decomposers like bacteria. Now all these events are repeatedly occurs, and the unidirectional flow of energy towards higher trophic level and finally lost in the form of heat to the environment. Now the here sentence is there. It is about the energy flow of ecosystem. Now energies came from the solar radiation and it is converted into carbohydrates by photosynthesis. Then these carbohydrates are transferred to the herbivores, then primary carnivores, and then secondary carnivores, and because of the decomposers it is deposited in the soil. Now here energies always flow in a unidirectional from producers to consumers, right? So we'll discuss later how the energy flow in an ecosystem and different important features of that energy flow. So it is about the functioning of an ecosystem. Now here the solar input, cycle of temperature, day length regulates the rate of function of the entire pond. Now this is the most important. These are the different factors which affect the functioning of entire pond ecosystem. First is the solar input, second is the cycle of temperature, and third is the day length. Solar input, if the solar energy is very less, right? It is always very less in monsoon season as comparatively summer season. Cycle of temperature means if you take a pond, in the pond there are three layers are there according to the intensity of light and temperature, right? If you take example of pond, now in overall pond, as the light intensity entered into the water, as the light entered into the water, according to the depth, the intensity will also decrease, right? Upper surface of water has more light intensity. As it entered into the depth, it goes decrease, and the bottom water has very less light. So according to the availability of the light intensity, the temperature of water also different. The upper surface of the water is very high temperature, right? Than compared to the bottom water. Because of this, stratification is there are three different layers of water will form because of the light. So this is called cycle of temperature. The day length also. So solar input, cycle of temperature, and day length. All these three important features regulate the functioning of ecosystem, right? Right? Now, I hope all of you understand today's lecture. It was just a general,
Yes, sir.
there is nothing was there. So it is a very general topic. As I already told you,